Black Lives Matter, is a value and a sentiment, a statement that we as Christians should affirm, and also the movement is something that is bringing to light to the white world what's happening in the Black world.
Yes.
And so that's a good thing. We should have our eyes open, right?
Yes.
One thing I hear a lot of white people will come up with as a kind of counter statement is all lives matter.
Mm-hmm.
Which I have to admit, I have really, really hard time with. It really gets to me, and
Mm-hmm.
and the way you defined racism, I keep going back to that because I think it's perfect. I think it explains why all lives matter is such a problem,
Mm-hmm.
because it's about power again,
Yes.
right? Prejudice plus power,
Absolutely.
and so all of a sudden, when you're insisting all lives matter, you are removing even more power from
Yes.
what is happening in the Black world that you had just talked about, that we white people I might not know or be aware of. We're saying, no, it's all our lives matter. And we're just not letting Black people say, yeah, but ours matter too. It's not matter more. It's not matter. It matters too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm
I
sorry.
think
I
one
meant
of
to
the hard.
actually ask you about that as instead
Yeah.
of me just saying it, but this one really gets to me. So do you have anything to add to that or?
Yeah. It's so this is funny. When I started seminary at Calvin, and I would hear the conversation would go, and I would talk to other white seminarians, and I said, yeah, being white. I said, oh, no, I'm Dutch. What? No, I'm not white. I'm Dutch. Uh, what are you? You're white. No. I'm Dutch. Yeah, so are Poles, and and so are the French. It was a weird. It was a weird conversation, and it's just to say this is very often we the hardest thing to admit is that we have a color. To say I'm white. So what does that really mean?
Yeah.
What and I think for a lot of our brothers and sisters is to evade that, to say that, well, it really means nothing. Yes, it does mean something.
Yeah. So we can't say, I don't see color.
Because the moment that you see color, are are you Ray Charles? Are you Stevie Wonder?
Right.
Last, you ain't blind. Yes, you do. You see color. That is to devalue
Yes.
that color actually matters, and that people of color is actually devalued.
Yep.
And so I think we need, for our white brothers, admit that you're white. Just admit it.
Yeah.
And then also, uh, look at your own history. Don't just accept what's good about it, but also what is problematic about it. I think for is to admit that, is there something, do you get certain rights and privileges because of that? Yeah, you do. You get the benefit of a doubt. For a lot of people of color, they don't. So what does that mean in terms of having the kind of conversation that's actually honest
Yeah.
and not defensive?
Yep.
And I think that the more that white people understand, our white brothers and sisters understand, how did that operate in the Christian Reformed Church? How did whiteness operate in the Christian Reformed Church? It operated as a way of, here's how we preserve the saints. Here's how we preserve our way of life in the new America in order to have the religious freedom and to practice the way we want to practice. Okay, but you do know that there were other people in these United States who didn't get to do that, who didn't get the same rights and privileges and benefits that you got. And a lot of that I kind of stated with my own parents.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I think once we integrate that into our own lives, our own history, then it gives us a better place to have a really honest, transparent conversation, as opposed to being defensive and denying that history actually exists. I spent I've had a lot of conversations with it's essentially I had a lot of conversations with white pastors and elders, and I was quite amazed how many of them knew very little of U.S. history. And one brother said it like this: "I didn't have to know about you. It wasn't per. Why should I know about Black people? Your history has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with my life." And he was absolutely right. But I credit him that he named it.
Hmm.
And to say that our history is limited. So how do you increase your history of this of how the US came about? Not just your own history,
Yeah.
but the entire history, so that were in Versailles, were the Dutch the first people to come there? No, they weren't. They were the First Nation people.
Oh,
Well,
Portuguese too.
uh, uh, so where are they? Where did they go?
Yeah.
And so we have to be able to look back at history. Doesn't just start with where we began. History began before you came there. So how do we have a conversation about how did Versailles CRC actually started? How did it actually
Interesting.
really started?
Yeah.
And begin to have and then
Yeah.
I would say have some other people to come in and say, well, here's the other part about Versailles that you don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
here's the other part of Versailles or Pottersville. Here's the other part that you don't know, because that's just as important. That it helps to inform the conversation that we're having right now.
That's a very good idea.